Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Thursday here at Capsho, and this is exciting. This is the first time we are streaming on more than one platform. We've become a multi-platform show officially.
I don't know how you got that done.
Thanks to our sponsors, obviously Capsho. So we're very grateful to them as our own company. So for those of you who are joining us on YouTube, you would be very familiar with both of us hopefully by now. This is Ash and myself, Bona. We are two of the three co-founders here at Capsho. But this is the first time we are streaming the session into our Facebook group as well. So those of you who are joining us on Facebook, definitely say hi to us there. Our Facebook group, get more clients from your content. And you may be maybe less familiar with Ash because he's kind of been more behind the scenes in that group other than early appearances on a previous show we had.
I was going to say, that's true, actually. In the early days of the group, I did make more appearances, but I feel like that's it. I've been on the YouTube shows with you, now coming into the Thursday morning slot. So going from afternoon drive into morning, loving it.
Is that a promotion? I think that's a promotion.
I hope so.
This is prime time. And we chose this prime time spot today because we are talking about something really exciting, which is image generation, and has been a point of interest for you for a while, but using AI, image generation using AI.
Oh, totally. And I mean, I don't know for anyone out there who has played with it, it was more the fascination of when it first came out. Obviously, everything we do is very business oriented. We've always put a business lens on it, whereas AI art was very fanciful. It was whimsical. It started with like just taking almost how crazy could you go with it?
Yes.
Because there was no way that you could ever draw or design that up. So that was, I guess, the early fascination. Almost.
And you creating Monty, our mascot Monty, using AI art.
Oh, that's it. Like little Monty designs, baby sloths, little badgers, stuff like that. So it was so much fun. And we'd seeded a little bit within Capsho. So we'd never, I guess, gone to the actual image generation side of things. But we knew that like within our blog posts, within the blog posts, both with the image suggestions for the LinkedIn articles and with the infographic, knowing there are a lot of visual elements within the assets that people could get a hand with, at least the thought starter for them to take that away into the various tools. Obviously, the natural progression for us was let's get it into Capsho now directly. You know, how do we allow people to not have to, navigate their way through all the different kind of options out there and just play around with, what could be brought forward from an image point of view? Yes, but like with everything else we do, the fascination then starts to move into, can you put the business angle on it? And when I think business angle, I think more of the design elements that are not just give me a photorealistic image of a steaming hot cup of coffee while I, think up ideas in my notebook. That's just I could style that and take a photo.
Yeah.
But can I produce a YouTube thumbnail? And where that's different is that normally you want to put text as well as imagery. And that's where the challenge has been, especially like with the way we do infographic. It's not there to just do a one-shot kind of like put this in and you'll get it, because you'll never will.
Yes.
Too much text. So that's where we kind of thought, now where AI has kind of got, can we test it out again?
Yeah. And that's always been, I think early days of testing, we were like, there is absolutely no way, but there's been so much more in the space we know has come into it. And then really, I think, one of the main challenges we set ourselves is to say, well, how would a layperson go about this? We know that lots of things are possible if you understand advanced prompt engineering, which Ash does, but I don't. So how would we actually think about this from the perspective of our Capshovians and people in our community who don't have a lot of time to be tinkering around with these tools, but probably need the efficiencies of image generation?
Yeah, for sure.
Which was kind of what we thought, we'd set ourselves a challenge of for this task and see what we get.
Bona versus Ash in this sense of kind of going
in a friendly way, because Bona
friendly.
clearly loses.
Well, don't give away the ending. Okay. Spoiler alert. That can we put Bona in everyone's shoes who, with no experience. And I guess in that kind of context that you've kind of not played around with these extensively.
Yes.
Like I'm sure you probably accidentally got DALL-E to fire up in ChatGPT.
Very, very accidental.
Even unwittingly.
Yes.
So kind of getting into a few new tools, playing around with it with very little knowledge, just going, well, this is what I think I should be doing.
Yep.
I don't want to become an expert and spend hours learning how to get this out. And in our case, it's definitely not in Capsho yet, but as we've kind of alluded, that we want to bring that forth. We've got into the really early stages of testing, and we thought, well, why don't we just bring the people along with us, show you what we've been up to. So really what you're going to see is Bona going at it from a kind of new, cold perspective, and where current version of Capsho is in our testing phase.
Yes. So we, Ash and I got together on the weekend because we're that dedicated to this topic to actually do this. Me kind of show what I came up with, and Ash obviously to then look at that, give me some feedback and some tips that you can all implement.
And it was so good that literally it got bumped. We were like, we have to bring this to the people on a Thursday morning. We've got to go live into the group and YouTube.
Yes, exactly. So we're going to go ahead and flick over to the video. Definitely, as you're watching this, let us know in the comments. Ask your questions because we'll be on there addressing them with you because I think this is just going to be the start of this conversation. So we'll be back after this.
Over to you guys.
Results as it relates to experimentation with image generation tools already out there.
Yes.
And also we're going to be giving you a bit of a sneak peek into how we're thinking about building it into Capsho. But we thought a really great starting point would be maybe starting where most of our community would be, which is as a layperson who understands the benefits of AI, but maybe isn't like super technically skilled up on prompting just yet, but has a very specific need around the types of images that they need to generate. And then obviously that layperson in the team would be me, because Ash is obviously much more of an expert when it comes to prompting. But we thought, well, the best place to start would be to say, well, what are some of the tools that people already have access to that they could at least start to do this with the use cases that we've spoken about, which is creating a header for a LinkedIn article that you're posting on LinkedIn, creating YouTube thumbnails for videos that you are publishing, and also what I think is quite a difficult thing to do, which is creating infographics to publish alongside your blog posts. So basically the tools that came to kind of top of mind for me were Canva, because we're already obviously using Canva for a lot of our graphic design. It's one of the probably the most used tools out there by entrepreneurs. And I'd kind of heard that they obviously have some AI image capability now.
From a non-AI perspective.
Exactly. Yeah.
Heavily used.
Very heavily used as just a tool. And, obviously they've done a really great job of making now graphic design very accessible to the layperson who doesn't really understand design, but can build some cool
I'd be
things.
One of those people that I'd never think that I could do now half of the stuff that I do in Canva.
Yes.
However long ago it was when that became available. So
exactly. Yeah.
But they are dipping the toe now very much into that AI space.
And they've been talking a lot more about it too, whereas I think they kind of sort of started to share it and maybe they weren't entirely confident, but they've really started to, put it out there. So we thought, okay, that's a really good one to definitely to use. Obviously ChatGPT and, with DALL-E being available in there, that made I'm using ChatGPT a lot, so might as well test that. And I know a lot of you watching also use it. And I hadn't used it in a while, I think ever since originally kind of DALL-E came out and we were doing a lot of those more like fun image generations.
Just whimsical, fantastical stuff just to see AI art. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then you suggested a third one that I hadn't heard of, Ideogram.
Yes.
Ideogram AI? Anyway.
Ideogram.ai.
Yes. Yep. So you said, look, that one might be, it's a pretty user-friendly for the regular person.
Newer, definitely kind of, I would probably say like Mid-Journey would be the one that a lot of people would kind of come to mind when thinking about AI art.
Yeah.
And Ideogram has kind of recently come in alongside that to, challenge in the more, I guess, fantastical space, which is why I was like, I think try this one, because I know that I probably told you to go maybe have a look at Mid-Journey, another platform that I haven't used for a while, but I don't believe it's that easy for people to start with. Yes. They do not have a accessible free plan.
Yes, exactly. So, Ideogram was a great one that just some background noise. Ideogram definitely I hadn't heard of, but Mid-Journey, to your point, everyone's heard of Mid-Journey. They really kind of pioneered the space anyway to make it, like a fun thing for people to get involved with. Back in the day, obviously, it was part of Discord, but now they have kind of opened it up a bit more, but to that point, they don't have a free plan or even a trial from what I could tell. So for the purposes of this video, I did not test with Mid-Journey, but just seeing some of the things people were creating were more in that portraiture, very much, sort of more like very much just kind of coming up with, to your point, fantastical, but very much just visuals versus some of the use cases we were thinking about, which were text and images existing together.
It's almost this idea of like AI art. I mean, all of these kind of came about where it was AI art, and almost what we are doing, it's not AI art, but it's AI design.
I like that distinction
because that's really what we do. Like when you think of Canva and we create all of these things in Canva, it's not an art tool, it's a design tool.
Yes.
And hence why we're even using them to leverage their AI capabilities. So it's really just going, can we use these AI art tools for design purposes. That's
I love
a
that
challenge.
distinction. I love that distinction because that's right. It's almost like art in a way could be, oh, there's a really beautiful journey. It's we're talking about stopping the scroll, potentially converting people by getting them to click on things. So it's got more of that marketing element to it.
Yes.
So I think that's a really great way to think about it. And I think also the other tool that had come up that you suggested maybe I could try was Imogen on Gemini, but I wasn't able to get that to work through the chat interface on desktop. I think it's only available on mobile, maybe potentially from what we can tell.
We played around very quickly.
Yep.
Got it to work on the phone, couldn't get it to work on the desktop. So not sure if that, again, it's early phase rollout.
Potentially.
Test it out. Let us know.
Yeah, I will say that Canva has an Imogen plugin from what I could tell. So I tried to use it for that, but I'll show you what came up with that particular experiment. It wasn't very fruitful. Okay, so let's get started then with the LinkedIn newsletter article header. All right, so let's start with Canva, our beloved Canva, and what I was able to generate with, what I thought a fairly descriptive prompt to actually create a LinkedIn article header. And the specific use case that I used was for an article that Deidre had written about her content honey trap method. And this is what we got. To be honest with you, I don't even know what this is. It looks like there's a bedroom image, there's a confetti image. I think that's confetti. I don't know what you think, Ash, but it just looks like, or coins maybe?
Coins or
and then there's this very artistic.
Buttons, like those kind of like little pin buttons.
Oh, yes, where you either collected them or over time just lost them from your clothes.
But I don't know what that is.
Yeah, so forget the fact that it's kind of just in this like square. I don't really know how to use this. It's not in the right dimensions. But if I ignore that, it didn't bring any of the text and the heading that I had mentioned, and it's just got this very, very artistic take on something. And like I said, I think it's just kind of given up and said, well, let me just at least give you something that's visual, basically.
Because we're gonna drop the prompts in the description.
Yes.
But what was so you've given it what you wanted to do. So you told it like it's a LinkedIn article.
Yes.
You've given it some text, what you wanted to show.
Which was turn your content chaos into a client magnet.
Yep. And you gave it like colors.
Okay. Yes. And I gave it the hex codes because I thought Canva liked hex codes.
Yeah.
Maybe I was wrong.
Like
and
blue
I did also
might not be the exact blue that you wanted.
Exactly. Yes. So it seems to have got, okay, I won't even say that actually. It has got the colors right. And I also, and I don't know if this is best practice, but I also gave it, because LinkedIn tells you what size it should be in, I also gave it the dimensions because Canva also, I thought, technically loves dimensions.
Yep. Okay, so you've given it that, and then that's
none of it's come through, basically.
Yep. So it's given up on text. I guess
dimensions, colors.
Yeah, you didn't
text.
You kind of were going to let it pick what the design was. So you've not really given it like a thought starters for what you wanted to see on the page.
That is true. Yes,
which is kind of good. I mean, it's not a bad thing with these kind of AI image generators. That's the beauty of them, is that you don't have to have that up front. Let them do their thing. But is this what you expected? Can you work with any of this?
I really can't, unless I'm just spinning off into a completely different thing about buttons, to your point, or just like interiors and maybe some art. Maybe this might look cool on something like a coaster, but none of this is usable. I can't.
Okay, so fortunately for Canva, didn't.
It's a babong.
Okay, and so
can we do sound effects?
Is that me? Am I in charge of sound effects?
You are.
Live Dolby. Okay, so if Canva was a no, then what was your next port of call?
Yep. So
ChatGPT?
I was disappointed there. Yep. So then I went, okay, let's go into ChatGPT and maybe we can get somewhere with this.
So probably the most common, so probably Canva we're not really using for AI much. So this probably, I would imagine most people, if they're on the Plus plan, I think you can only access DALL-E if you are a paid subscriber of ChatGPT. This would be most likely the port of call for most people's starting points.
You're right. Yeah, you're right. So basically I did, because I'm so used to chatting with ChatGPT, I just kind of gave it probably less of a, just kind of said, hey, this started super simple to say LinkedIn header image and the headline. So I didn't give it too much direction, not even the colors. And, I got this back, which I was again like, I don't know what to do with this. There's a lot going on. It's got LinkedIn logos and terribly spelled versions of I was like, okay, this is not what I needed. And then I said, well, let me try to be helpful and give it maybe some dimensions and specify that I don't want any other words on there because there were so many words.
It's a lot of text.
I don't know what a coney trap is, but that sounds interesting. And I said, well, maybe I can give it a little bit more into what I want in the imagery to anchor the imagery in, and no other words, please, other than the headline. And then I decided to start to build more of a LinkedIn profile, I guess. And I mean,
With
I
like
didn't mind the
post,
honeypot.
that's the thing. It's kind of like, this is a post on someone's LinkedIn profile. There's just so much happening here.
Yeah, it did make me laugh, and I thought, okay, well, maybe let me, because I was, again, I'm used to kind of more iterative approach with chat. So I said, okay, maybe if I kind of a bit more structured in what I'm saying, I'm being one of those terrible people that doesn't know what I want. And then I thought giving it more detail might be helpful. So I said, hey, let me just step it out a little bit more and give it some direction. And then it kind of just started to have a mental breakdown, I think, because then it started to more so design out the LinkedIn webpage. I mean, LinkedIn will hate me for saying this is not what it looks like, but almost its version, I think, of what it understands it to be. And this is when I thought, okay, this is a dead end for me. I don't think I can make this work.
Okay, so ChatGPT also has failed in the task. But it's an interesting, as you mentioned, the approach compared to Canva, which is really like give it a prompt and then run it and you get an outcome. ChatGPT is essentially that, but because of the, as you said, iterative, like more chat, slightly tweak, you've taken that same approach.
Yes.
But
I tried and it kind of just
hasn't actually worked out the same way you would normally find with text.
Yes.
Like if you were writing something or ideating, you would probably be in a much better spot after like 3 versions of your prompt than what you kind of almost regressed here.
I would say I did, because now the first one is looking pretty cool.
Yeah, you're like give me the days of the first one.
Exactly,
like where am
why
I
have
right
they
now?
made up a person and put it, created a made up person's LinkedIn?
Like a little Chris Hemsworth.
Does not look like Chris.
Yeah, more learned Chris Hemsworth.
No, like nothing.
No?
Like there is
Liam? Or do I not understand
none of the
Liam?
Hemsworths. I don't think you understand Hemsworth brothers. Like not even Luke. Not even Luke. Okay.
But you got to mention here, we still remembered Luke despite starting with Chris,
you can't
Liam,
talk about
Luke.
Chris and Liam and not mention Luke as like the other one. Whereas if you just talk Chris, you might move on to more like Marvel talk or whatever, right?
Right, okay, yes.
But if you bring Liam into it, you have
then
to bring
Luke
Luke
comes
into
in,
it. Yeah.
The double L's.
Anyway, none of the Hemsworth brothers, but
we did, because we didn't want them. So, okay, so ChatGPT has also failed on this task.
Yes.
So now it's testing on, as you said, the new one you hadn't heard of.
Yes.
How did Ideogram go?
Yeah, my faith is at a super low right now. I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I'm going to go back to just doing this on our own. But I thought, well, there's a new kid on the block as far as I'm concerned. Let me not write off AI and give this a proper go. So thank goodness for that, because this is what Ideogram created. Now, it's still got a little bit of that, it's bringing in some of the hex codes and it's saying, hey, by the way, this is a scroll stopping LinkedIn article. Like it's bringing in elements of my, of my prompt, but I could work with this. Like it's got a little, these images, it's kind of it's brought in the colors a lot better. I was very, very impressed by the words, the fact that it was clear. I don't know, with ChatGPT sometimes it kind of starts to, you can tell that it's kind of not really sure about itself, and the words are a little bit murky.
That's always the most frustrating thing is when it just misspells one letter. Like it's clearly got client right, but then it changed the E to an S and it's like, why did you do that?
Believe in yourself more.
Yeah, I could have used this, but now it's rendered unusable.
The whole thing is unusable. Exactly. But yeah, this is a lot crisper as well. That's immediately what I noticed again as like a non-design, non-technical person. That was immediately what I noticed. And the versions that it did have, I did mention maybe like a honeypot as the anchor image. It did, again, not in quite the dimensions because I hadn't mentioned the dimensions in the first go, but I quite liked sort of the imagery it came up with. And it gave me, because again, I'm super basic in how I prompted this. It gave me some options of the type of, do I want it to be more like cartoonish or like more real? But it just gave me some options to really think through. And I thought, hey, this is actually helpful in helping me, like helping jog, what limited creativity I have in this particular area of my life. So I was immediately like, wow, this is levels above what I've seen in Canva and ChatGPT with, I would say, less effort in prompting.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So that's the thing. You've not really done anything different here. You've brought across the same prompt in all 3 platforms.
I've kept the same prompt. The only difference was in ChatGPT, I did that extra little bit of iteration.
You kind of tried to make it get better.
Exactly.
And it
I was trying to be helpful.
Okay.
But yeah, that's true too. Because we're very scientific here in terms of how we do things. Same prompt in all 3 platforms.
So I guess you got to a point where you've at least got something to work from. There's probably nothing that you can just kind of take and lift and shift. Because I think, as you said, they're a little, maybe the bottom 2, probably at least that they got the text right, gave you some colors, got some imagery. I can already
There's no
see
rogue
there's no,
commentary.
it hasn't added that extra text. I think that's the key part sometimes, really, when we're trying to do something simple with like a LinkedIn article header. I mean, personally, the first thing that comes to mind is going, look, you've got a title, you want some design, that's really it. That's the whole purpose of it.
Yep.
And what we saw with both Canva not bringing any text in or ChatGPT trying to bring too much text in, that's not helpful. You just want, simplicity.
Okay, so this was me, again, very basic, very, let's say, uneducated when it comes to getting the most out of these tools.
Did you do any research ahead of time?
That's a good point. Research by way of how best to use these tools.
Yeah, like image prompting. Did you do any, or you just went in cold and went, let me try?
I went in cold. The only assistance, if anything, and like obviously ChatGPT would be just usage in general. What I thought I understood about AI prompting as it relates to at least ChatGPT prompting, the only thing I really used was almost what these tools suggested in terms of the process. Okay. So like I said, Canva just had a very basic blank box. So I just went with what I thought. Ideogram was a lot more assisted in terms of it saying what size do you want, put in your instructions here. Do you want us to like auto, update this prompt to make it better? All those sorts of things, so which obviously led to the actual better result as well. But went in completely cold without any additional research on what's the best way to get the most out of these tools. But I would love your thoughts, given that you play in the space a lot more, and what are some ways that I could probably more easily uplift some of these results?
Yeah, so I think the interesting thing that we probably need to start thinking with images is we're so used to prompting within ChatGPT and almost giving so much context now, needing to, like, let's say in this instance, it's a LinkedIn article header. Now, if we were writing something, we would not just ask it to just write something random. We would be saying, okay, again, I need it to be LinkedIn. I need it to be optimized for this. I need it to be, all these XYZ things, which was kind of what you brought to this.
Yeah, we're told to be as specific as possible when it comes to copywriting.
Exactly.
With AI.
And probably what we've found with the images is it's brought in like the LinkedIn logos. It's brought in, like ChatGPT wanted to design up LinkedIn again. And that's almost
the interface came into it.
Yeah, and it's almost because that is coming through in your prompt. Even some of the hex codes, while they are useful, I guess because you start to see some of the randomness, it's now coming through in the image because it's not explicitly understood that this is just a guidance. It actually thinks that that's what you want to see. Now, obviously, Ideogram has done a much better job compared to the others.
But even that's brought in some of what you're saying there.
Scroll stopping article, like it's brought in some of those elements that then... Like we said, it's like, okay, you could probably take it into Canva, crop it. You've probably got some great starting points at Ideogram, but you might then not. Because of those small couple of things, it then renders the whole thing useless.
Yes.
Because you don't have the desire to edit it. And, as a result, now the whole thing's been quite fruitless. So I would probably say it's almost going in and still kind of just wanting an image.
Yeah.
Thinking about it, going, ultimately, what is this image I want? Obviously with some form of text.
Okay.
Because obviously you're trying to design, you still need to be putting in the text, in this case, turn your content chaos into a client lead magnet, but not needing all of the other kind of, dressing. LinkedIn article, the hex code, like you kind of almost start at a point where you've got to be comfortable where it might not be your exact brand colors.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have something that didn't take you very long.
Yes.
And you're in a better starting point, and it's just engaging and eye-catching. Like it's never going to be something that's dull and boring unless you've prompted it into grays, whites, and blacks.
And that can be quite engaging if the contrast is high.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If you do it the right way, and that could be your brand. So I think they're probably the little things here where immediately these could be elevated and lifted in a simpler way, which actually means that your prompt is even simpler than you've probably started with. You've overcomplicated the prompt.
Yes.
And in a way, it's almost the inverse of what we're doing in ChatGPT. You don't need to almost over-engineer the prompt.
It's like when you're in an argument and you keep talking because you think that might help when really you probably just need to stop talking, say less, and then that will actually help the situation, and then you just get aggravated and then you just walk away. So 100%. That's what's happened with my me trying to prompt this LinkedIn article header.
Yeah. So do you want to see what I've come up with? So obviously,
I think that's what the people want. They were like, okay, this is nice. This is, very amateur hour, but now let's take a look at when the pros get into it, what can we actually expect from AI?
What is Capsho doing in its, as I said, preface, the very earliest stage of our testing?
Yes.
So what I decided to do was I went, let's just use your exact prompt. So obviously...
Back to being great scientists again.
Yes. We don't want to just get straight into any kind of switch up. Let's go like for like and see, in terms of what we're doing within the early form of Capsho's image generation, LinkedIn article or like I guess the LinkedIn logo comes through here. So I think you can kind of see it's got the text right. It's got some, design, which is lovely. But again, that idea of, and I guess, look, it's even brought in the word improved prompt. Like it's just brought in random kind of text here.
Yep.
It's got the title heading right, which is great.
And that looks good too.
That's kind of, again, it's I love this, I love that, but I don't like all this other stuff.
Yes.
How do I get rid of it so that this is, usable? Probably, and it really probably then comes down to like your comfort level in Canva, because I could see this and I go, okay, I can get rid of all of that text pretty quickly, but do you have the desire? That's not the purpose. So that was the first kind of step. You can kind of see the second one, same thing, kind of cool design. It's got a bit of the text, but it's bringing in the hex code colors. So you can kind of see here, stating LinkedIn, the platform type and the hex code color hasn't really served us.
Yep.
If we go
I'm sensing a theme here.
Yeah. So now kind of simplifying it a little bit, and you can kind of see this was a version where I've removed that. So what I was saying before, if we just remove the idea of LinkedIn and an article and header and everything like that, and just going, I just want something designed up that is going to be eye-catching with these words.
Yep.
And let's see what it produced. And you can kind of see here, it's now starting to get something, hopefully that's a little bit more usable. Might not be in our brand colors as such.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day,
it doesn't have rogue elements on there.
Yes. Again, getting to the heart of, we're getting the text that we want.
Yep.
And there's no text that I need to clean.
Yep. Just now it's about whether I like the design or not, basically.
Yes. Out of the two now, it's just going, again, it's a little bit more design. So I think this is actually another level where I think the other two had colors still in them. So it did a good job of not kind of getting the colors hex codes into it.
Yeah.
This one's going to another level where it's like, okay, well, can we actually simplify the prompt even further?
Oh, this is where you actually remove the reference to the colors in the prompt.
Yeah. So I've kind of really taken your prompt and just, again, improved it myself slightly, and then obviously run it through our version. And you can kind of see there's a little bit more design elements here and
this
the
looks
text.
Cool. Yeah.
And then last one, just to kind of get variation, a different take on something that is obviously designed, but the text is there. So again, ultimately you can kind of see there that some of that rogue text is being removed. We're left with just the good title text that we want, and then just some different design, versions and elements in terms of how we'd like to style it.
Truly representation of less is more, because literally taking elements out of the prompt and making it less has given us a much richer and actually something that you can actually use kind of output here.
And so essentially it's kind of going like, if you then took that into what you did with probably Chat, Canva and Ideogram, you'd get a better starting point. And then obviously unfortunately can't reveal the secrets behind the scenes.
Yes. We'd have to kill you if we did.
But almost testing it with that simpler prompt that you started with, and then allowing, our work in the back to kind of enrich it, knowing what works versus, I guess, you trying to work out, should I tell it this? Should I tell it this? Should I tell it this to make it better?
Yep.
In your case, probably wasn't helpful. Whereas us taking what is a great starting point from your prompt and then giving it all of the flavor that's needed to see something like this on the screen. Love it. So my question is, are you going to use early Capsho's kind of like almost alpha version, or are you going to stick with your, I'm going to say the ideogram. I don't think you're going to use Canva or ChatGPT. Canva and ChatGPT, I'm not talking to them at the moment. We are not, we are on a break. But ideogram maybe, but I will say I'm very lazy when it comes to these things. Maybe lazy is the wrong word, but it's just tinkering with this sort of thing is not my jam. Yes. So, obviously I have the benefit of being able to access Capsho's alpha version. So if I'm getting this level of content. You're just happy just to go, give me that. Let's put it up there. 10 out of 10 days, I am letting Capsho do that. Exactly. Okay, so now let's talk about our second use case, which I actually was quite excited about, which is the YouTube thumbnails. Yes. And the reason why is because, again, there's a lot that goes into thumbnail design, whether you're fully into optimizing your YouTube thumbnails or not. I feel like one of the things that stops, at least me anyway, from exercising that is just the cognitive effort that goes into designing thumbnails and knowing what might be some alternatives that you want to test with and things like that. So I think that's why I was super excited to use AI for this process and see what we can create for our content. Now, I did the same thing. I kind of came up with what I thought was a, pretty good prompt, descriptive, and used the different tools to see what I got. So let's go ahead and see what that was. Yeah. And so I know this because to your point, you've been mentioning YouTube thumbnails for quite a while in terms of, hey, Ash, can we, again, pre us worrying about getting it into kind of Capsho as such, but just on just our own workflow, can we get this in some semblance of usability so that, as you said, I can get something up pretty fast, have some options, and again, you don't want to spend too much time. It's not an area that you really want to dig so far under the hood because you care that much about it, but you know how important it is.
I was going to say, it feels like we're missing out on an opportunity to A/B test even well after the content's gone live because there's so much, there's a lot of YouTube strategy around that, and it's like, we just don't have the time, probably patience, or maybe resources even to be constantly designing these in a way that is required, and it kind of becomes out of sight, out of mind, but felt like the perfect use case for us to spend some time on.
And you don't need much text. So from what we saw with the LinkedIn header, I think where hopefully everyone's seeing is that the more text that comes into these, probably you're going to get something that you can't use because there is some rogue, weird, funky text on it. So if you can kind of live with something that is very image heavy with a little bit of text, which pretty much YouTube thumbnails are
3 to 5 words,
it feels like we're going to be playing in the right space for where this is at. So I'm hoping that, your YouTube thumbnail journey was better than your LinkedIn.
Well, let's just see what happened.
So how did Canva go? Our favorite AI tool.
Not well is what I'm going to say. So for some background, the thumbnail that I wanted to design was for one of our videos where we said, turn crickets into conversations.
Okay.
And this is what we got. I mean,
interesting.
Yeah.
It's very varied.
Well, wait till you see this one. This was my favorite, I think, because I'm like, what is happening here? What is this? Because this, I'm like, okay, it's very literal. This is trying. It's almost like that. I can see maybe the vision.
It's trying to bring some text in it. It's the first one, like the options you got for the LinkedIn had no text.
It just gave up. One, it's like it's saying, okay, I think it's cricket.
It's got that completely wrong.
Yeah, but I'm like, okay, I can see it trying. It's just gone, hey, did you mean you just want crickets?
Yeah, great wallpaper that you could tile.
Exactly, kind of creepy. But this, I just thought, okay, at this point was when I said, I think Canva and I need a break because...
0 from 2 Canva for you.
Yeah, exactly. And it's, I don't want to ruin my feelings about Canva because I do have positive feelings in general about Canva and how much it's helped. And it also being a fellow Aussie founded company, I feel like I want to retain that positivity.
Yeah, just stick with using Canva as Canva was intended almost.
Exactly.
OG Canva.
And then I said, okay, well, put me out of this bad mood. Let's see how ChatGPT does. Because again, like you said, not too much wording. Surely, Chat's going to do a little bit of a better job. So I took the same prompt and then, at this point I wasn't enlightened on hex codes yet. So I was still putting that in. And I said, please help me with this. And this is what ChatGPT created. A YouTube thumb mom.
So again, it's brought in the fact that you've told it YouTube, but it's actually putting it down, even I guess bringing the YouTube logo there in the bottom.
Along with lots of other logos, but yes, it's really like, just so you know, this is for YouTube.
Yeah.
And when it said, let me know if you'd like any further adjustments. At this point in the previous one with LinkedIn, I was, trying to do it. I said, I don't have it in me. I don't even know where to start.
You didn't even try to iterate this.
Nope.
Okay.
I didn't. I just said, I don't think this is what this is cut out for. It's almost like DALL-E's just decided, it's not for you.
So you were just like, given this starting point, there's no way we can whip this into shape for something that's going to be usable.
Exactly. I wouldn't even know what to say.
To the team.
Exactly. Yeah. They would just, I think, look at me and said, would you just like us to create it for you? And I would say yes.
Okay.
So look, I get it. I get the crickets. I get the little speech bubbles.
Yep.
The concept is there, but again, unusable. So I think this is where you're like, this is not the tool for me.
Okay. And then still went with ideogram?
Of course. I was like, well, that is the one suitor that I feel like I could actually see a future with as it relates to
and how
AI
did it go?
images.
And how did it go with YouTube?
So YouTube and ideogram, this is what I saw. And again, I just thought, based on what I'd seen with Canva and ChatGPT, I was like, this is so much better because firstly, it's got the words and there's only 4 words, right? So it's not that hard to do. It's crisper. I love how creative. Again, I gave it very limited, design, directions. So it's given me a few different options, which are really fun. I think pop really well, and just gave me some ideas. So again, these 4 options, I was like, well, we could use any of these really because they're kind of lift and shift now.
It has, and again, it goes back to that idea of going. It's done a really great job around the text.
Yep.
There is not much text. So really only one of these 4 has a slight kind of misstep in that INR.
Yep.
But almost because it looks like it was trying to split into across it, you could probably just put a pink covering on that in Canva and you've still got something that's very usable. So this is great because I imagine now it's really just more of a choice of which one do you want to use,
Yeah.
or maybe to your point of like, I don't know if YouTube, obviously you can A/B test, but can you do multiple? Like, could you actually put all
so.
4 up and actually test across?
Oh, that's a good question.
But let's say you could.
You could, yeah.
You could now just use all of these to see
exactly
what is going to work.
Or run, even if you can't, you can run A/B tests over time with the 4. So
okay, so Ideogram has really then
is once again
has done the job for you in this way where you would like to see what like Ash and Capsho AI can kind of do for you.
Always, yeah.
But actually, you know, without us, you're still at a much better starting point than you ever thought you would be.
If anything, I think it's just like a salve for the ChatGPT and Canva kind of outputs, maybe where it wasn't fair because it just feels like so much better in comparison.
Yes.
But yeah, to that point, it's something that it's usable.
It's usable.
If I did not have access to Ash and Capsho, again, there's something that I could potentially use, which is a win.
So it's definitely coming away, I'd almost say. Like, I think before we were thinking it was just art, there are some elements of being able to get some design in.
Yes, but I am very excited to see and show the people what you were able to create for YouTube thumbnails.
Okay, let's do it. Like we did for LinkedIn, we are not going to muck around with your initial prompt at all. We're going to take that, we're going to put it in, and we're going to see, you know, a few different variations that kind of come out. And that's a lot of the time, probably when you are using these tools, there is that variation you're seeing. Like you saw with the Ideogram, it gives you the 4 choices. Sometimes you can, I guess even with ChatGPT, you can prompt it for that.
Yeah.
Ask it for the option so that you've got different starting points. So close. I don't mind the background here.
It's a cool concept, I think.
The text, again, there's one, it's doubled up on crickets. You could probably just remove one of those, but it's given you a starting point. Okay, so we kind of kept playing on this kind of tune. So again, another option almost went with, I don't know, like claymation. Is that what this is?
I remember this being really popular at one point, but it's coming back.
It's coming back.
Capsho's bringing it back.
It's stuffed up the words. Okay, so again, let's move on. And this is in the space where we are still using, I know you mentioned you've gone YouTube thumbnail, you've gone all the hex codes, and you've added all that extra flavor around the actual core crux of what you want to design. So we then kind of strip it back a little bit, and you can kind of see here by even in a way like removing the text.
Yeah.
Another option of actually, if the design is there, given that the text is simple, is this a better starting point? So this is almost just now
just giving you the design and concepts
to kind of play with. So you can kind of see this different, I guess it's really picked up on the cricket theme like we saw in Canva. Going, how
they do love the crickets.
Bring that in? Again, something that's quite colorful, different options, but I'd probably say like a lot happening here.
Yes.
Like where can you fit text in?
Maybe into the speech bubbles, but anyway,
Again, we kind of continue on. So this is probably where I started to play around with your prompt. So everything we've seen before is actually your initial prompt.
Yep.
And almost the different iterations where, unlike LinkedIn, by having YouTube in there, it didn't impact it probably as much, where we didn't see a lot of that imagery.
Yes.
Because
trying to create a YouTube profile kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
But that is a lot of, I guess, what we're working on in the back end with Capsho to be able to, as I said, enrich it in the smart way without you needing to do all of that research yourself.
Yes.
So here I actually played around with the prompt a little bit. As I said, kind of remove some of that YouTube kind of references from the prompt. So we're just more trying to create something that is going to kind of create a scroll stop, something eye-catching essentially.
This is eye-catching for sure.
Definitely that juxtaposition between the two, like the left and the right.
Yeah.
But probably by being a bit more minimalist, there's more space here for you to add the text on and still get the pop of the image.
Yes.
So then we kind of took it a next step further. Go, okay, like if we do put the text back into it, so that obviously was just removing YouTube and removing just more imagery, going down that path of, again, more minimalist. We're not going to give it too much direction around the platform, but we do want to turn crickets into conversations as the text. Here, I mean, this one, I mean, interesting. More cockroach-like, I'm going to say.
That is true.
Crickets are getting a bit of a
bad representation here. Yeah.
But just some different options, still being able to turn crickets into conversation into the image, definitely in that kind of title highlight text, but not overpower the creativity. And probably what is going to get people to stop is going, what is actually happening with this design? Then let me have a look at what is actually written on the actual thumbnail as to whether I want to click onto this.
This is a scroll stopper for sure. But I think this is the thing. It's almost like I love that journey we just went on where we kind of stripped it back And then once it felt like we got to a better place with it, truly understanding what the primary purpose of this design is, and then layering in what we think we might need. But I think also you made a really good point about the text, especially for something like a thumbnail where the text should be 3 to 5 words, maybe 6. It may actually be a better option to add that in yourself later, potentially.
Yes. So I would probably say, again, early stages of what we're working on in Capsho here, when we get it to that point and it's released, obviously a advanced version of what we see on the screen. But I think right now, for people out there wanting to, utilize these tools, that would be my recommendation of sometimes go with, don't worry about the words. Don't worry about the words. Worry about just the design, because that's actually the challenge that everyone has. And that's why you're here in the first place, is that you can easily chuck some text onto a Canva template, but you probably can't find the template in Canva that you like.
Yes.
You're looking for something that's a little bit quirky and random, which is what these AI tools do. So maybe just start there. Either you've got an idea or let it kind of produce that for you.
Yep.
And then use that image, go into Canva and leverage it. But I think, sometimes we are wanting everything done for us immediately.
Yes.
And it perfectly. So we want the image, we want the text on it, and we want the whole shebang.
Yeah.
In this case, it's getting better. And definitely within Capsho, we are looking to do both. But almost the fascination and just that experimentation of like, for you as an end user, which one is actually more useful for you. So even looking at that, so you got some good stuff with ideogram.
Yes.
I think you're probably in a bucket there where I'm going to call this one almost a draw, where I'm like, you had some great choices. I think where Capsho is right now in that same bucket, but really you've got, for YouTube thumbnails, I'd almost say like 8 to 9 great options to play with.
I was going to say, yeah. And I think what was helpful about the second round that you did was the concepts were more creative. And I think I was having a bit of a light bulb moment as you were talking, because I think the ideogram ones were good because they were well structured, visually appealing. And they basically had the main point of like the conversations, and then, whereas the options I saw here with Capsho was there's different concepts, design concepts, and going back to what we originally said in the video, where this is about not so much about art necessarily and it looking aesthetically good or aesthetically what you want, it's design for a very specific marketing purpose. So almost letting the visual be the hook, and then the words just reinforcing that, I think is an interesting thing. Because I wonder now then because I think that's the thing, by giving it the words or the thumbnail wording, you're giving it the end concept in your mind. But really, and then you're trying to get the words perfect. But it's actually like, no, this is actually the purpose of the thumbnail. And then it coming up with some really cool concepts that we probably wouldn't have thought of ourselves. So I think that's almost why it was more valuable to see this second set, because they were more diverse and gave us more options. So
yeah. Or sometimes like our text is so literal that like turning that into or a literal representation graphically is hard.
Yes.
So that tends to be what happens when we are including the words versus just going, forget the whole conversations part here. I just want to, if I'm going to put the word cricket, have something with crickets chirping.
Yes.
And then you just let it go from there. So that would be my recommendation if people are using the other tools.
Love it. Okay, so now on to the third, and what I would say, even as a layperson, probably the hardest use case for image generation using AI, because this is the one that's going to have the most words, and we spoke about with the words being the issue earlier on, and that is to create infographics using AI tools. Now, I will say I did have probably higher expectations of Canva going into this because, again, wrongfully probably assuming that so many people use infographics, so use Canva to create infographics manually.
So they have templates that you can kind of leverage? Yeah, that would make sense. Kind
of like with a lot of other templates, but it's definitely one of, I think, the most popular things, and they've got the verticals and the horizontals. Obviously, these are all designed by, by real designers. So I think I wrongfully maybe given it away, but wrongfully assumed that they have a lot more when it comes to, the infographic use case that they could build their AI technology off of, is what I assumed. But let's get into it and see what it was able to create for us alongside the other tools I've been testing. So this is what Canva created for us. As you can see, it's kind of largely like we were talking about. I think it understands what an infographic looks like generally. I do note that it always defaults to a square image in all the things I've been looking to create. So I think it visually understands what an infographic is. So it started to build that in. But really, I think everything else has just fallen over because, again, there's too much text probably that we're trying to feed into this process.
And what did you give it? So how much text did you actually share, or were you trying to hope?
Yes, really good point. This is what I fed into Canva. It is actually almost a direct copy and paste in terms of the body of the content of the actual infographic of what Capsho creates right now for your blog post, where it says, hey, here's some information on an infographic you could create for this blog post. So I just said, okay, cool, this is going to be the content of my infographic. Here, please create, put this onto an infographic for me and do all the smart work around distributing this content in the right visual way.
Yep. And I think right now, like what we're producing and where we're helping people with, because current Capsho doesn't produce it in obviously this, click of a finger AI realm, it's got a title, it's got almost like subtitles, and it's got the text that you would put into the different areas, because that's what you would manually need to do.
Yep.
And it's a great like thought starter and help, because even I know myself, I'm going to say, like, I hear the word infographic, I kind of understand what an infographic is, but I'd be like, I have no idea how to design this at all.
Yeah.
So that's what we currently do in Capsho to help get going.
Yes. And almost the existing templates for Canva that you manually create are helpful, because at least they've got some placeholder headings to that point, overall heading for the infographic, as well as the subheadings and places where you can put text. So I think that just jogs people to say, oh yeah, actually I really like this layout. I'm just going to copy and paste the parts that are relevant to my content. So again, like I said, I think this is probably where it did fall over. Now it makes sense, because text is such a difficult thing to get right. And so I kind of went into ChatGPT probably with very low expectations for the very same reason. So let's see what ChatGPT created for us. Okay, so there you can see my prompt. It's pretty much the same, items that I put in. And the prompt itself is quite short, but the main part of it was obviously the content. And again, as ChatGPT likes to do, there was a lot going on in this one as well. So it tried to add, I think, all of the content I put in, and then some. It's almost like it then also added some more in and around it.
Okay. And I'm assuming, like you did with YouTube, you were immediately, you didn't even try to keep working on this. You're like, we are so far not where we need to be.
Exactly. At this point, I thought, okay, it probably is an unfair test for AI, is what I thought, to be honest.
Yes.
Because I thought this is a lot of text. I'd already seen how it struggles with just even some of the lesser text-heavy assets like the YouTube thumbnail and LinkedIn article, and I just thought, I'm not doing this right. And it's probably, we're not there yet with the technology, is what I thought.
Yeah. And what have you thought about, just because I think looking at both Canva and ChatGPT, probably Canva to a lesser extent, just more like ChatGPT's image looked crazy. But at the same time, it's really like a visual design, which I would be like, even if someone gave me that, I don't know how to fill the text in to make this cohesive, or to tell, like, is the image meant to tell the story? Like, I find ChatGPT loves these circular images, almost these steampunk style.
I was going to say, I was like, what's the word for it? But it's the aesthetic is very specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm like, could you see going, man, if the text wasn't there, would the image be a great template start? Or is it all a bit wild? Yeah,
I think, from a branding perspective, it probably is a little bit too much for us, because then it does feel like, the imagery is like the image itself is grounding the concept, which, I mean, maybe we could almost think of this as like, okay, you're on target with your message. I don't know, but I think it would be too much.
Yeah.
We would have to at least remove some elements, because I think I can see where I would probably put text, but then I'm like, does it make sense for us to do that?
Yeah.
Maybe if it had more of it's going in this order of things, but I think personally, even if we cut out these bits and we just focus on this the main image, it's too much.
Still struggle. And I think that pretty much gets the crux of it, is going, there are so many elements happening in an infographic that you're asking from a single prompt to do, in this case, 5 or 6 different isolated things that you might think about when you're designing this.
Yes, and get it all right, pretty much.
So I'd almost, again, I think if we kind of keep that in mind, we're asking visually it to do a lot when we know it struggles with text, when we're trying to put 4 words for a thumbnail.
Exactly.
Okay, so Canva 0 from 3, ChatGPT 0 from 3. Ideogram so far feels like it got the thumbnail, LinkedIn maybe a half point.
Yep. But it did a good job. Yeah.
Could it seemingly do the
I was
impossible?
Nervous. Yeah, I was nervous. I was just like, oh gosh, this is not, boding well. And like I said, I think I am realizing that this is probably a bit of an unfair ask, but I had to complete the experiment, because we're not quitters here. And this is what we created with the ideogram. Okay, so when I first saw this, I was excited. I was like, oh wow, okay. Like, immediately I can kind of go, it's crisper, it's clearer. It seems to have got the, largely the overall headings right. I think it's understanding that this is more of a bit of a linear, 4 top steps of, 4 steps, 5 steps, can't remember now. But then again, going back to that, okay, now let me, because with infographics, you should be accurate with all content, but this is where there is more room for error because you are adding so much more. I loved the designs aesthetically, but like we talked about, when you kind of look into it, there's just way too many places that we can make those mistakes. And obviously, Ideogram also had that where it was starting to get some of the words wrong, didn't quite have the order correct, and things like that. But again, overall, I think it gets the concept a lot more probably than the other two. But yeah, this is where it felt a little bit unfair. But yeah, your thoughts?
So you can kind of see definitely. So, I mean, I'm imagining your 3, and it would be fascinating if anyone does, have a Midjourney account, seeing how this style almost of task goes in a Midjourney, because again, it feels like one of the OG platforms, but very much for graphical, as an art design, create a book essentially and illustrate. But you can see Ideogram coming a long way, doing a good job here. I'd probably say what looks like the thing that stands out for me is the simplicity. Again, the other 2 platforms try to design stuff in totality. Yeah. Obviously, this has done that to a degree.
Like it's brought it together, but
it seems like there's a lot less on a page, which at times I feel like is the point of an infographic, right? Yes. Convey information simply rather than have me dig around small text.
Yeah.
And so that's what's kind of done here. Probably, again, those simple little things, removing the hex code, so again, that first one does a great job because it's probably in that pink and purple and blue style, which is great. But then some of the other options you don't have the ability to use because I guess it's brought in the hex code.
Yeah.
The subtitles, it's done a good job. Now, I know that you did like the numbered list, even removing numbers because you're just bringing that other element in that it tries to be helpful.
Yeah.
But if it gets the order wrong, like it has, it's put 4 next to 2 and then it does 3.
Yes.
You now can't use this.
Any
or
of
you've
it.
got a little bit of editing to do in Canva.
Yep.
So just kind of trying to remove any of those things that you think are trying to be helpful, but in a way you can still convey, but in a way they're almost agnostic.
Yep.
Unless it needs to be from this to this to this to this.
Yes.
And that's what I can kind of see where probably the first one is the most usable.
Yeah, it's very close.
The rest, that subtitle, it's probably that extra text. So the way I think about it, like there's title text, there's subtitles, and then there's that kind of subtext. The subtext has done a poor job each time because you're just asking it to do a lot. So,
and that was what came to my mind to say, is this just too big a job for any AI, including Capsho, because I think that's almost where we start to see it start to fall over was when there's too much text involved.
Yeah, like real, and I'd also say that this becomes now heavy design.
Yes.
Like in that sense, so I'm like, if you gave me a task to design a YouTube thumbnail just in Canva, so I'm like, take AI out of the picture, I'd be like, okay, let me have a crack.
Yep.
I'm not a designer, I know how to use Canva, I'll have a go for you.
Yep.
If you said design an infographic, I'd be like, oh, what? Like, I don't know how long this is going to take me. Like, where are the templates in Canva? So even like that, like I think a lot of the times, and I think we kind of start to see this in these chats, is that if you would ask a human of what we think about from a human perspective, sometimes AI just doesn't just click its fingers and it does something that's hard for a human really easily.
Yes.
Sometimes that cognitive load you start to see in the AI as well.
Totally. Yeah.
So challenge accepted. We're like, how can Capsho take on this infographic journey?
Let's see.
It wasn't easy. Straight away, you can kind of see it's got, so more looking at that kind of like long vertical style. I guess the ones in Ideogram, you went more like 16 by 9. So it was more like across a page.
Landscape, yep.
So here you've got the portrait view. You can kind of see, did a great job with the title. It's tried to, like, again, what we've seen with these infographics, it tries to put this like real like funky design together. And it's started to bring in some of the subtitles, but all of that extra additional text that we don't need. So, and again, like we've done for the others, this is just the lift and shift from the prompt that you had across Canva, chat, and Ideogram. So that was one option. Continuing down this path of like, okay, can we see almost with variation through sheer will, if we prompt it, 3, 4, 5 times, doing very little change, does it eventually get it right one time out of 5, 6? So in this case, you can kind of see it's maybe getting the title right, or it's got a better chance of getting the title right. But when you start to get all the extra text in, it's still not a great representation. Here's almost like an image. So this one's completely random. Again, bringing in some random elements. It's just decided that, I don't know, Forbes has endorsed this, or this is a Forbes article, Forbes to Forbes.
Scan this QR code to read my article on Forbes.
So almost you look at these and you're like, at times, almost a useful tool as to how you could design your infographic.
Yes, I will say each of the designs we've seen have been very different, and it's almost very conceptual. So it's like, okay, not bad.
Yeah, and is it put a QR code in, have it scanned somewhere. So almost not, readily usable out of the box, but probably a much better starting point as something I could take into Canva and create myself. Okay, so now taking the same approach. So everything you've seen to this point was just taking your prompt Bona, getting into the realm of like, how can we kind of almost like smooth it out, simplify it? The idea of just removing text.
Yeah.
So the way I think about almost an infographic would be that knowing that it's struggling to handle at times simple text, we go back to both the LinkedIn article and the YouTube thumbnail. Let's just go with those subtitles. Let's remove all of that subtext almost with in mind to go, I can add that into whatever I've had designed. Or maybe I don't want that. Maybe if I just put this out, people can just quickly understand my framework or whatever the purpose of the infographic is, just through some iconography and some text. So here you can see,
and the text is like really well written in this one.
It's nailed the subtitle parts.
Yeah.
Kind of got a little bit crazy with the design.
Hate it.
Went for more of an image representing an infographic. It's almost meta. It's an image of an infographic. But it's making you money, I believe, which is the most important thing
it's
here.
It's $1 a day, exactly, yeah.
And then now this style is just more me mucking around where I'm like, actually, probably whether it's Capsho and what we end up like maybe trying to help them build for infographics specifically, but almost a strategy of like, well, if I was trying to like help you, is it better to almost design this, design the design on the page with a title and actually produce the space here where it's actually removing everything out of it. So this is just the concept of an infographic where you've got a title and that there will be subtitles or little sub icons, but don't actually fill it in. So you can kind of see here, it's like, is this actually helpful? Going about the infographic journey to, in a way, use it as a design ideation that then you can then fill in a tool like Canva. Rather than you trying to prompt it and prompt it and prompt it, is it better to just quickly get to this point and then just take it over to Canva because you're probably in a better starting point?
Exactly. And I guess because it's almost like what are the highest cognitive effort tasks? It would be, in this case, would be coming up with the content for the infographic, which Capsho does, is in the current version of Capsho, and then would be, okay, how do I put that into a layout? But once I see this, to your point, it's just like, oh, okay, I've got these 5 or 6 steps. Let me just decide if I need to shorten it a little bit, but it's kind of done the layout for me. And if I like it, I can just use it.
You can just now plug in the elements that Capsho's already given you.
Yes. And like the more I see the QR code, that also does make me feel like this is a super interesting thing to explore, because a lot of the time infographics are embedded in blog posts and stuff so that, you can actually your content can come up in image searches as well. And that's like a really intuitive way to keep driving people either back to your content or, the offer that's making you the money. So
now the next kind of thinking in terms of how you could probably go about building an infographic. So having seen everything that you did, everything that I guess the early version of Capsho has produced, it did a great job for LinkedIn articles and that header. It did a great job for YouTube thumbnails, but we're still seeing that the infographic is requiring too much. I guess right there, we looked at one where it's like, hey, take this and go to Canva. Hey, use this part, don't use that part. The infographic's still not something that can be easily just like copied and downloaded and then utilized. So thinking about that and how we've built pretty much both the YouTube and the LinkedIn is breaking it down into sections. So what we mentioned earlier from what we've seen, through what Capsho produced or what you actually had produced through all those 3 different platforms, Bona, was we're asking it to really design, if we think about it, sections and bring it together in one. And that's where it's struggling because it's trying to like write a bit of text here, write a bit of text there, go onto the other section.
Pull together the concept,
And so this was more and just a quick approach to almost even pick your brain to kind of go like, actually, well, leverage high authority content is one of the subsets. Laser focused targeting is one of the subsets. And now you can kind of see here that the subtext brought into it is actually now working.
Yes.
So you could kind of take the approach of like, I just want the subtitle, easy one, because I want an infographic that says a lot, looks great, but I don't need to like write too much text.
Yep.
Or if you want to get into the realm of, I do want that subtext in, I'm going to add the subtitle and the subtext, but I still have a cool icon that goes with it. I could now actually create almost 4 separate images that then I leverage and stack together
almost,
in a Canva.
Yeah, almost thinking of it like as a mini web page design and designing out the sections and then
almost when you're thinking about like these are the features or these are the elements, and you kind of have the, how do you describe it? That kind of like left to right zigzag pattern down a page. This kind of then starts to build in a way that you could kind of convey your message that way. So
super interesting.
I think right now you can kind of see here infographics, just a really open space and probably an area where you can kind of start to think about it. Again, I think a lot of this is like, think a little bit more outside the box.
Yep.
It's not a really easy linear path. I think that's why it's such a challenging space.
Yep.
It's probably not for everyone because it can be, I imagine, a little bit like tear your hair out. I want this to be simpler and I want it to
3
happen
hours have
faster.
passed. Yep. Me saving time with AI. Yep.
But it does require too much probably tinkering at the moment, the infographic, but really where as I said, like what we're looking to do with Capsho is now bring all of these elements where we've got the image suggestions in the blog and the LinkedIn articles.
Yes.
That's the easy part as such because it's just an image. We've got the infographic stuff in the blogs right now. Obviously what we've already explored here, expanding into YouTube thumbnails and then the LinkedIn article headers, really us helping do a lot of that heavy lifting.
Oh, okay, we're back.
We're back.
Just doing a quick mic check.
Yeah. Didn't you realize that the shirt color had changed?
Well, mine did, but not yours.
That's what I picked up. Because I'm a bro. I'm wearing the same shirt color. You
get it. I'm still new to this game. You're more the creator in our midst.
Well, I'm one of the creator, but I really adhere to the unlive method.
That is true. More of a purist, let's say. More of a purist.
Yep. Traditionalist in the most recent, newest thing that we've got going. And how did you find that? I really wanted to find. I mean, I hope everyone really got something out of that. If you've played with, I guess, image generation, like did that help around? Again, I'm interested to know if anyone has, done it. Like, how have they found it? Have they tried to do it almost the way that we've presented it there? Because, like I said, it's not in the early days. You might have done that, run into a roadblock really quickly, and then jumped away. Like I tended to not. I'd steer clear of AI imagery like this. Like normally when you kind of think, hey, let me quickly go to ChatGPT or Midjourney, it was because you had, as I said, I need a baby sloth.
Yes.
Like that's clearly you can see what happens in my mind. I'm like, I need a baby sloth and I need it in a slightly different like pose position. Is it eating a banana? How's it hanging from this branch?
How realistic is it or not?
Yeah. Do you want it as a cartoon?
What clothes is it wearing? Yeah.
So yeah, if you've done, I guess, this image design, how have you found it? Has it improved? Hopefully some of those tips helped, but how was your experience, Bona?
Yeah.
Going in cold.
Yes, exactly. I was very new to this because I think even playing around with let's say, design images for marketing, it probably wasn't something that I experimented too much with. I think I'd seen a lot of it. So there was definitely a bit of resistance there on my side. I will say it was a mix of, I think, trying to unlearn what I have learned about prompting AI for text outputs, which is the primary thing that I use AI for, and kind of that frustration that I was feeling about not getting the outcome that I needed, even though I felt like I had, quote unquote, done the right things.
Yes.
So that was like one, I think, a big part of the experience where I was like.
So actually almost like applying what works really well for you from ChatGPT, taking that into these platforms, and not seeing remotely the impact that you would have expected.
Which included ChatGPT. And I think that was almost the confusion for me. Obviously, what you shared about how this is different and almost giving too much can actually, caused them to do what they did makes a lot of sense in hindsight. But I think going through it, that was almost a frustration. But then a tool like Ideogram, where I was doing that less in a way. I mean, I did have the prompt there, but there were other more like, settings that I could very easily toggle on and off, and I could see how it was going to be impacting the end outcome. Felt a lot easier than I think I'd anticipated. So it was almost a mix of like some stuff was actually easier and better than I thought, and some stuff was like way worse than what I thought.
Yes.
And Canva almost felt too elementary in the sense of like, I get that I'm overloading this prompt, but you're also not giving me other ways that I can tell you what I want.
Yeah.
But you seem to be just going for the end result.
Or you're not getting the feedback. I think that's a lot of the time with this. You don't have the feedback is just, I don't like this.
Yeah.
Or there's this part of it that I need to change, but you don't really know how to go about enacting the change.
That actually hit a nail on the head.
Trial and error. Then you do a variation to the prompt.
Yeah.
And you hope that it improves.
Yes.
And then if it doesn't, you're like, well, did it help in something? And so you then could easily get caught up in a loop. So given that you saw, it was interesting that you, as you said, like some and some like probably not going to touch again. So you're almost in this 50-50 bucket. And I think that really sums up almost AI art. I know, as we said, image design creation, not the art side of things.
Yes.
So would you go back? Like, was it enough for you to try and at least integrate this into your workflow? Again, seeing where almost like the early stages of what we've been testing in Capsho.
Yes. So I would say, ChatGPT and Canva did feel very labor intensive, very cognition intensive, to your point now, actually, as you were saying that, I was like, oh, that's what it was. It's not so much that I don't mind iterating, but I don't know how to do that because I'm not getting the feedback at a more granular level. Or it's just saying, hey, did I do well? And I'm like, no, but I don't know what feedback will help you do better. Definitely, I think, like I said, Ideogram, it seemed to give me a little bit more control and seemed to be getting the brief a little bit better. Now, with Capsho, I didn't have to lift a finger at all other than give you the prompts that I originally had. So I will definitely continue with that part of the process.
You appreciate it again.
Exactly.
Not changing and having to learn much and allowing.
I'm very much seems to be a done for you person when it comes to this thing. But I think now the thing I will change in that approach is to say, to that point, almost changing our current workflow from going, okay, I've come up with the thumbnail wording and turn that into a visual concept to be more like potentially maybe the way we change it. And I don't know if this would be correct, is like, this is kind of like what the context or, what we're looking to create. Like you almost come up with the visuals.
Yes.
And then the word may well just go on top of that. Maybe Capsho will create that, but it's almost like a second step as opposed to being the primary driver of the design. I think that's almost going to be how we definitely want to, approach it compared to what we do right now.
Yeah, really needing to apply that. Every asset needs maybe a slightly different approach.
Yeah.
There's no one size fits all when you are developing these. Historically, I mean, I guess it's weird because I guess when I think about a YouTube thumbnail or an infographic, they don't seem like apples and apples to me either.
No,
like how I would approach it would be different. So it's just doing that and thinking about it that same way. And I always say this, where like sometimes we don't always apply that when we're using AI because we think that it is this magic thing that can just make things happen instantly.
Exactly. Yeah.
With this broad brush of turning disparate things into one unified way of doing stuff. And it does to an extent, but then it doesn't, like we've just seen. So cool to see that. It was, again, really fun on my side, seeing where we're kind of going with building this early stage of the Capsho image kind of generation aspect of it.
Yep.
Hopefully everyone was excited to see where it's going, what we're already producing. And that was the thing. It's like really early stages. We're putting a big focus on bringing this to life, both from obviously cool, the image side of things. We didn't touch on that today. That obviously will be in it, but really going, where can we help beyond that with, for me, I mean, I think the big one for me is YouTube thumbnails.
Yes.
Like I've been playing around and we're wanting to do that. Now, as you said, being a creator, getting into that space, needing to be on YouTube for
needing YouTube
some of the other
thumbnails
projects.
yourself. Yep.
Will be very helpful. So
I agree.
Stay tuned.
Yes. And like we said, I no longer say we eat our own dog food because that kind of doesn't sound very appetizing, but we we eat what we cook in the Capsho kitchen first before we share it. So, you know, we're definitely on the journey right now. We obviously share what we're learning like we have been in this video. So if you would like to be part of it, part of the Capsho community, make sure, and you haven't tried Capsho yet, we do have a free 14-day trial that you can get by going to www.capsho.com. You can obviously use what Capsho has already, but you'll be the first to know around, you know, things that we are building like this image generator tool, and usually the first to try them when the features are live as well. So definitely make sure you do that if you haven't yet. But yeah, this has been really fun. Now, I think the next kind of set of series of videos we're going to be doing is going to be, you know, kind of in this, we've got a lot of great feedback about sharing behind the scenes. So we're going to continue doing that as to some fun things that we're working on and inside of the kitchen. So the next time we're back, which is going to be in a couple of weeks, we are going to be putting the spotlight on our newest feature, which is video clipping. That has been really awesome to get out there and get in the hands of Capshovians and get some feedback. But we can't help ourselves. We're like, okay, what other value can we add in and around this feature that's already available? And we've been cooking up some pretty exciting things, I think, as it relates to what else you can build off of that platform with clipping. So we're excited to show you that.
So definitely join us next, and we'll be in the morning slot again. This is I'm a permanent fixture here.
I think so. Okay. I think so. I think we did well. So
and I enjoyed
you're invited back.
The bright lights of the morning rather than the kind of the afternoon sunset
glow. Oh, okay, sunset.
Yeah, you know, the space that we're at. But I love, to your point, being able to take the cool new revamped clipping functionality and feature that we have in Capsho. So showcasing that. I'm sure a lot of you are playing with that. Again, let us know how you're finding it, but not just giving you a rundown of that, giving you that behind the scenes peek of what we're working on, even in its earlier stages. So I think that's the thing. If you're liking that, we're giving you this look of almost how we go about thinking through this to see the clipping feature and not kind of sit on our laurels and go, there's so much more now you can do now that you have all of this great content from the clip, the captions, the hooks. What more would people want? And listening to some of the feedback, and we'll bring that to you in 2 weeks.
We're super excited. Hopefully you'll catch us then, whether that's on YouTube or on our Facebook group. But we look forward to it. See you then.
Bye.
Bye.